quickly.
What is it that animates the Tea Parties? How is it that this movement has come about almost overnight in enormous numbers to challenge the orthodoxy of the government?
I think it's the recognition that government has failed. But big government has been around for a long time. Both parties have promoted it. But I think in the last few years it's been recognized that it's not working. People who even want the benefits are recognizing that,
the right to keep and bear arms, the right to defend yourself. Is this a right that only belongs to the government or to state militias, or is this a natural right that belongs to every rational adult?
I don't think of rights belonging to the government. I believe rights belong to the individual. And not in groups. I don't like to think of collective rights, that people have rights because they belong to a group. No, the individual has a right to bear arms. But I don't even think you need that particular saying, because I think the right to own property should be enough to own and bear arms. But the Second Amendment and the Fifth Amendment means you have the right, and governments don't have the rights. They have some obligations to protect rights, but they don't have the right that would supersede our right as individuals too.
Do libertarians, Congressman Paul, recognize that the child in the womb is a growing person with the same rights as a person that's already been born?
Well, I think it depends on which libertarian you talk to. The Libertarian Party is even mixed on this, even though their platform endorses, abortion to a degree. But I think it is an act of violence. The fetus has legal rights. I, as a physician, if I do something wrong, I can be sued. If there's an accident and the fetus is killed, they're liable. Inheritance rights are there at conception. But acts of violence under our Constitution, I believe we're always meant to be dealt with at the local level, at the state level. So I would like to keep the federal government out as much as possible. Obviously, no funding for abortion, but yes, the states have an absolute right. That's the reason I support the repeal of Roe versus Wade and allow the states to take care of the problems.
But government can't protect us from everything. Government couldn't stop the oil from coming out of the earth in the Gulf of Mexico, even though the government told BP where to drill, and even though the government put caps on BP's liability. What role is there for government in a crisis like this?
Well, one thing is if they are obstructing, they ought to get out of the way. And in many ways, the federal government has obstructed. They have prevented property owners in the states to deal with some of the problems or the threat to their property. But the assumption is it's sort of this moral hazard that is involved when government grants the license and they're the regulators. People believe they're going to give us security, whether it's the SEC or the FDIC or safety in mines, or safety when they give a right to drill. It's not dealt with the market. The market might have demanded that there be more inspection. The insurance company might have been inspecting these properties and these mines and these drilling. And under those circumstances, required bonds to be put up. So I think you could have a lot more safety if it was dealt through with the marketplace rather than depending on the government regulators.
Congressman Paul, if the federal government wants to mandate something that is obviously against the Constitution, can the states refuse to comply? Stated differently, can they nullify federal behavior which is obviously harmful to property and freedom?
Well, they should, but they're not able to because the federal government comes down with a heavy hand right now. But it was intended. Jefferson obviously argued this case that they should, and I think that's what the whole Tea Party movement's about. Big government is failing, the federal government is collapsing, and now these laws are not going to be enforceable. When they run out of money, they won't even be able to pay for these programs. So I think it's going to be de facto nullification, and I think that's what the people have awakened to this, but the government in Washington, the people in Washington, don't even understand what's happening yet. We should defend ourselves.
Do we need 900 permanent military installations around the world?
No, it's coming to an end. I think this so-called disagreement that you're suggesting is irrelevant because we're broke. And all empires end, and we do have an empire. When you have 900 and some bases, 135 countries, and we're the world, that comes to an end when you go broke. And we are broke, so the troops will come home. I'd like to just bring them home and save us from the bankruptcy. But no, they'll come home when the bankruptcy is declared, when the dollar doesn't function, and when there's such turmoil in the financial markets. We will come home.
We have legitimate allies, Congressman Paul, that we should be defending overseas because of their closeness to us, because they are democracies, like, say, for example, Israel.
No, I'd treat Israel like all the other countries, and I would say that we don't need bases in Germany, the Middle East, Japan, Korea, and they should be friends. We should take the advice of the founders. We should trade with them. We should travel. We should visit, be friends with them. but we don't get involved in their internal or their external squabbles, and we ought to just stay out of it. It would be the best for America and best for the world.
Congressman Paul, should the police be breaking down doors with military equipment and shooting dogs and terrifying children in order to look for a minuscule remnant of marijuana in somebody's pipe in their bedroom?
Obviously not. We should legalize freedom of choice. A government can't protect individuals from themselves. We can aim to protect against harm against each other, but not what we do for or against ourselves. Everything that people say about marijuana and other drugs could apply to alcohol. Alcohol is the deadly drug, cigarettes. It's just a useless battle. I think the most magnificent thing was when they woke up one day and said prohibition of alcohol was an insane policy, and we're waking up right now. Just think of all the nullification about marijuana laws now, and the left is with us on that. Just nullify all those laws.
The Patriot Act,
that means,
which you were one of the few in the House to vote against, does let the federal government hack into people's emails and other private information without a sort a judge. Is the Tea Party movement, Governor Palin, Congressman Paul, and all the other people involved against that type of invasion of privacy?
Well, I don't think the two of us can speak for the whole Tea Party movement, but I think the Tea Party movement, if they're smart, they're going to get on board and saying, yes, we don't want our private email hacked into, which means that we aim to repeal the Patriot Act. So I think the people are waiting. Government, too much invasion of our privacy, too much control, and we need to repeal the whole mess.
Like any family, the Tea Party has some differences. And speaking of family, joining the conversation is one of the first big victories for the movement. Congressman Paul's son, Dr. Rand Paul, is here. He's the Republican candidate for the Senate from Kentucky.